Hey guys and gals, welcome back to another episode of the Constructive Liberty Podcast. I don't do many live streams on the Constructive Liberty, but when you have somebody like Amy Dingman who wants to come on the podcast, you do it. So, Amy, last time you were on the podcast, which was, I'm not even sure when, I just looked it up. I pulled the episode up a second ago. It was June 10th, 2022. We talked about being brave versus being smart.
Yeah.
And kind of how the decisions that we make in life are sometimes brave, sometimes smart, and kind of what the difference is.
Yeah.
And it wasn't long after that you made some pretty big changes in your life. And I think that's what we're going to talk about tonight. But anyway, if somebody has not heard of you before this point, which I don't know how they could have not, why don't you give just a little introduction and then we'll jump into today's topic.
We'll jump into it. So I am Amy Dingman. I run the site of farmishkindoflife.com, and it's a podcast and it's a YouTube channel, and it's all the things. I live in central Minnesota on a 5-acre homestead where we have chickens and ducks and pigs and turkeys, and we're getting rabbits this year. I live here with my family, and we just hang out and live life and do the things. We've been here
Awesome.
since 2011, I think. So we have a big, giant red barn that was built in 1918. And if you've seen the barn, it's beautiful. That's what everybody talks about. So, yeah.
Wow, that's awesome. And it's still standing? Like
It is
pretty
still
good?
standing. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
I see so many old barns that
Yeah.
like they're just blown over and not
Yeah.
taken care of. And I
Yeah.
wish people would do what it takes to like save the
Yeah.
ancient buildings. But I guess that's not real ancient, but 100 years is pretty old.
Oh yeah. 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 It's it needs some work. It needs a roof. It's starting to leak a little. So, we have some things we need to do. But yeah, it is so cool
Yeah.
that it's still standing and usable. So
Yeah, that's
Yeah.
awesome. That's super cool. What's some of the favorite animals that you have on the farm right now?
Well, right now all we have is chickens and ducks. Took a little break last year, which
Yeah.
we'll get into. But yeah, so chickens and ducks is all we have right now. We actually have a bunch of little chicks that are hatching right now in our incubator. They're making so much noise. So that's the excitement in the house right now. But pigs are actually my favorite animal that we keep on the farm, oddly enough.
Cool.
I
Yeah.
didn't want pigs when we moved here, and we got pigs, and now they're my favorite animal. So isn't that funny how that works out?
It is. It's always interesting how, the things that you want really bad oftentimes end up being the thing that you hate the most.
Oh yeah. Oh
And
yeah.
the ones that you're like, I'm not sure I want to get into that, you love it.
Yeah.
What is it in particular that you love about pigs?
Their personalities. They have such cool personalities, and they give us bacon. So
Oh
there's
yeah,
that,
that's the best part. You can't,
Yeah.
I mean, if you get bacon out of the deal, then
I
what's
know.
not to love?
I know. Right. It's great.
Yeah. Did you have a favorite breed of pigs?
Whatever we get.
Whatever you get. Yeah, just buy the
Yeah.
feeders.
Yeah.
We got the Mangalitsa pigs, and
Oh,
we were
okay.
talking before we came in about their meat and their fat, and like it's incredible. You have to trim so much. So we ground sausage
Yeah.
yesterday and today, and there's so much fat that the sausage was almost white. We had to go cut up
Oh
some of the
wow.
hams and add to it. So like 80% of the pig went into the sausage, so we're
Oh my
losing
gosh.
out on a lot of the good stuff. But
Wow. That's
yeah,
a lot.
it's crazy how fat they are.
Yeah.
But last time you were on the podcast, talked about what's wrong with the advice of just doing it, and you gave some tips on how to be brave and how to be smart. And we went into the concept a little bit about the how brave and smart work together, and is one more important than the other, and how someone can figure out when is the time for one or the other.
Mm-hmm.
And it was not long after that you made a pretty big life change.
I did.
Tell us a
Yeah.
little about kind of what you went through there, and maybe some of your thought processes behind the changes that you made.
So what happened was I had been here at the farm since 2011, raising my kids. Well, obviously they were born way before that, but raising the kids, homeschooling, doing everything full time from home, writing, podcast. I had a Farmish Kind of Life, all of that. And then my youngest graduated from homeschool, and I was kind of like, now I have to go out and do something else. I'm going to make this big change and I'm just going to, I don't know. And then my friends were looking for someone to join their office. Their business was booming and growing and they wanted to add somebody to their office. And so they said, would you like to take this position? And I was like, yeah, I think I'll do that. And my husband,
Opportunity strikes.
opportunity knocks, and then we take it. And it was very exciting. My husband said, are you sure you're going to have time to do the stuff you were doing before and do this? And I was like, yes, absolutely. I can do it all, because why not? You're laughing, right?
Was this a full-time job?
It started as part-time and it was supposed to move to full-time. So the
Okay.
intention was, try it out part-time, and then 3 months into it, it would move to full-time.
Mm,
And yeah, so I don't know. It worked really well for a few months, and then it didn't work very well anymore. I think in the beginning it was, that honeymoon period of, because I hadn't worked outside the home for 20 years. And
right,
so going back to that, it was like, I have my little lunchbox and I'm getting in the car and I'm in the morning commute and I'm in the afternoon
right.
commute and I'm listening
Be
to
like everybody else.
I'm like everybody else and I'm living the life and I understand what people are talking about now. And there was just something really cool about that, about having like a story to share when everybody came home and gathered for the night. And now I have a story to share, like I didn't have one
Yeah,
before, but I have a different story to share, and
yeah,
after a few months of that, there were just some things I was like, wait a second, I can't do all the things that I thought I'd be able to do. I started to realize how many things I was doing that because I think go-getters, like we don't realize everything we do in a day, and we don't realize how much time it takes because we're not writing down all the things that we're doing, right? So
mhm,
we just keep at it and we do it. And so when I thought I'll just add a job and I'll shove everything that I'm doing normally, I'll just shove that into the time I'm at home, which I had no
right,
concept of what that was going to be. Like, yeah. Everybody laughs at me. It was an experience that I needed to have. I learned a lot
yeah,
from it, and I'm currently still working there 1 day a week. So I still have that kind of out, to leave the farm and do things. But I
right,
have definitely learned that I built something here and that's where I want to be. It kind of felt
yeah,
like the kid who ran away from home.
right.
Needed to go out and experience the world and then realize you have to go back home because mom has your blankie and your snacks. And, that's kind of what it felt like. That's what I joke
Yeah,
about it being, but yeah.
yeah, it's kinda funny, you put in your notes, "Ran away from home and got a job," and and I had to laugh at that one. But kind of if you can, somebody else who's in that position, maybe they are a stay-at-home mom or a stay-at-home wife taking
Yeah.
care of the farm, and they get the feeling that they're missing out.
Yeah.
If you went back to a year or a year and a half ago, like, leading into that time that you decided to go out and get a job,
Yeah.
are there things that you see that and I'm trying to figure out how to ask
Right.
the
Right. Right.
question right. Would you make the decision differently today, or was that a necessary experience for you to really realize what you've got? And how can somebody
Right.
else realize that without actually going through the pain of that?
um, looking back, I think what happened was a perfect storm of a bunch of stuff that came together. My
Mm,
kids grew up. I suddenly was like, okay, what do I do now? There was other stuff going on. It was just like, I really think it was a perfect storm of, okay, now you're going to go through this thing and you're going to figure it out. Um, I think I had kind of lost sight of what the path was and what I was, like I knew where I wanted to go, but the path I was on to get there, I was like, this doesn't feel right. And I didn't know what to do with that. And so I thought,
gotcha.
I'll go get a job because that must be the answer. Like
Yeah,
growing
the
a
answer to
farmish kind
everything.
of life and continuing to write books and continue to podcast, continuing to do YouTube and this whole thing that I've been doing for the last, however many years. Um I don't know, it felt like if the path that I'm on isn't working to get to that goal, that must not be the right goal.
Mm,
And you don't realize, well, how many different paths are there to get to that goal? You just need to find a different one. And so, um, I do think that it was something I had to do, though. I don't think that I would have, I last June-ish, like so almost a year ago. Um, I I feel like, yeah, like I had just lost my path. Like I didn't know where I was going, and I think there are a lot of people who get to that point, and I don't even know when you get to that point if you immediately realize that's the point you're at. Things just feel all jumbled up, and you're like, you can't even put your finger on it because looking back, I can put my finger on it and say, yeah, that's what was happening. But at the time, I don't think I had a clue that that's what was happening. So
Yeah.
I think going through all of that was what you look back and you're like, oh yeah, I get it now. I get what we
Yeah.
were going through there. So
Yeah, it you kind of see a lot of people that reach a point or like a breaking point of a previous life. Like for you in that instance, it was your youngest son graduating from
yeah,
homeschool.
yeah,
And it's like, okay, now it's a new kind of life. Like
right,
what am I doing now?
right,
For a lot of people, it's, maybe they set a business goal or they set a financial goal or they set a whatever goal that might be. Like I want to make $1 million.
yeah,
And once they've made the $1 million, then they're like, is this all? What else is there? What's next? And you see them kind
yeah,
of going through, thrashing around, basically trying to find their way.
yeah,
How can somebody how can somebody find their way or set their path in such a way that when changes like that do come along, they don't have to beat around the bush to try to figure out who they are now at this
right.
point because something's changed.
I think that's an excellent question. I think it's a great question.
Sorry,
I
I'm throwing all the
think
hardballs at you.
I know, but that's good. Um, I think now going forward, I think just having lived longer and had more experiences, I think the more experiences you have like that, the more you will get to those places in life. You're like, oh, this is what's happening. I've
Mm,
been here before. This is what's happening. Step back, like, and whatever it is for you. Sometimes it's having the right person to talk to. Sometimes it's being in the right community and asking the right questions of the right people. Sometimes it's saying, you know what, for a month, I'm not dealing with this. I'm stepping out of it. I need a new perspective. But that's a good question because I think if we could figure that out, and have like a checklist of, wait a second, this is
right? Wouldn't
I
that be nice? Like,
man, that
all
would be
right, check.
magical. I know. We'd all be millionaires. We'll
One,
we'll write that
two.
book together, Ken,
There
and
you go.
we'll have it all figured out.
It's kind of funny you mentioned that. I saw a comment the other day, and it was probably somebody made it up, but somebody wrote my friend wrote a book about how to become a millionaire, but he needs help publishing it. It's like maybe he should read the book.
That's funny.
Right. So earlier last year, you started the Farmish Papers,
Yeah.
which is a snail mail newsletter, which is
Yep.
awesome, by the way. My wife loves it. I love it. I love the little notes that you send
Yeah.
every time. So
Those
that's
are
super
fun.
cool. Little personal touch. I love that.
Yeah.
You had the podcast, the website, all the blog, like all the things that you do.
Yeah.
Then you started a job.
Yeah. See, now I laugh.
What had to give in all of that? Like, did you just not sleep, or
I
like,
I I didn't do the podcast for a few months.
yeah,
Just didn't do that. I wasn't writing for the first part of that. Um, like it was so weird to me to leave the house, be gone for 8 hours, 10 hours, whatever it was, and come home and then look at, because I'm an early morning person, so I get up about 4 or 5. So by 9 o'clock at night, I'm like, I am done. I am
yeah,
done. And so I would get home at 6 o'clock or 6:30 or whenever. Okay, now in this little chunk of time, oh my gosh, I have to try and do all this stuff. And at first I was like, I can do it because you have no clue how long it takes you to do anything.
right.
And then it was apparent that I couldn't. And um yeah, it was so weird to have that experience of like admitting I cannot do it all. I can't do it all. And
Mhm.
I think that's important to talk about, because I think sometimes in some communities, we can do it all. We can do all the things. You just, if you want to do it, if you want it hard enough, you can do it. And yes, but no.
Right.
I mean, and there's a point where you have to go, no, I have to make some choices here and figure out what I'm going to do. And so for a while, I just wasn't doing all the things. I still did the Farmish papers, obviously, because there were subscribers who were paying for that. So that
Yeah,
still
they
had to happen. And
people
that
wanna get
was
what they pay for.
right. Yeah, that was the focus. And then it was interesting because it really, after a while, it sort of drove my creativity isn't the right word, but productivity. That's what I'm looking for.
Mm,
And I actually started writing more. And
gotcha.
I think it was how I dealt with the frustration of going, I don't have time to do this. And so I just poured all my free time into writing. But then what
Okay.
happens is I get home from work, okay, now I'm writing. There's still a whole bunch of stuff that's not getting done. You know what I'm saying? Like, and the farm, I think what the big thing was the farm became the afterthought. And once I got to that, it was just I'd come home, I'd throw food at the animals. It's like, okay, you're all alive. All right, I'm going in the house to, yeah, you know, and, and
You're
living that
preaching at me, Amy.
and
Go
living
easy.
that life and being like,
Uh,
is this what I wanted to do? And for a while I felt guilty because I thought there's so many people, this is what they do.
yeah,
They work full time and they have a farm, and this is their life and this is their normal. And so I felt really guilty that I was thinking I can't do this. So I'm thinking, what's wrong with me that I can't? Um, but then it was that whole thing, understanding that, my husband and I built this life here at the farm. We bought the farm for a reason. We made intentional choices about everything we've done here for a reason. We built this life for a reason. And then to raise our kids up and get them to adulthood. Okay, now they're off doing their own thing. I went and made this choice where I purposely made everything more difficult for no reason.
right,
It was one thing if we would have been in a financial situation, or there would have been something that came up where it's like, okay, now you need to go out and like get a job and do this thing, and the farm needs to take a break. That would have been totally different. We would have done that because I believe that you can do the things you need to do when you need to do them, but we didn't
right.
have to. So that's what the rub was, I guess, was that I was out doing this and making things very stressful for myself and changing things within the household, and there was no reason, you
Yeah.
know? So,
I like that you said or you kind of brought out, that I can't do this. I see all these other people doing it. Why can't I do it? And I don't
yeah,
think it's necessarily I don't think we should be asking ourselves, why can't I do this? But
yeah,
should I even be doing this?
yeah,
Is would maybe be the
yeah,
question that we need to ask ourselves sometimes. And there's a lot of things that I want to do, and I'm like, why can't I do this? And it's like, can I figure out a way? Or, we were talking before the break. I was a couple weeks ago, and the guy introduced a new way of thinking to me, which should have been obvious. He said, you don't have to do everything. It's like when you run
yeah,
into an obstacle, it's like, who's going to help me? How much will it cost? And how long will it take? Like,
yeah,
you don't have to do everything.
yeah,
There's other people out there that specialize in those things. So
right,
it was
right,
just kind of an interesting way to just a shift. And I'm sure I've thought of that, but when he mentioned that, I'm like,
yeah,
yeah, I that makes total sense.
yeah.
What what would you say to or what did you learn about yourself working through all of that, being off the farm, wanting to be back on the farm, and realizing that you didn't want to push through like a lot of other people that you see do?
What did I learn? My aunt said sometimes, I was talking to her about this, and she said sometimes we learn more about ourselves in the things that we don't want to do than from the
Mm,
things that we do want to do. And it's and I think that think that explains it so well when I'm sitting on the farm and I've got this magical life that I really feel is very magical and it's peaceful and wonderful, and I'm out in the barn and I'm in the garden and I'm, and it's hard work, it's physical work. We have a lot of stuff going on the farm, but there's just like there's this peace about it, But I think when you always have that peace, you forget you have that peace. And I think sometimes when you're tossed into those, whether you're tossed into them or you choose to
Or
go
you jump
into
in.
them, I think you learn different things about yourself, and
Mm,
that you learn what was peaceful and what you did like about it, and then what you thought you were going to find in the grass on the other side, whatever, because the grass is greener on the other side, but no.
yeah.
um yeah.
What did you miss most about the change after you realized, like, after you started that other job,
Hmm.
what did you miss the most about how your life was previously?
um it it was really weird to have a boss. um
Lady
it
says
was
Amy missed spending so much time with Poofy Kitty.
I did miss Poofy Kitty. She's such a helper. That cat follows me everywhere on the farm. Um, let's see. It was strange to have a boss. It was strange to have someone else saying, "This is what you need to do." It was really strange not being in charge of my own time. I think
Mm,
that's the thing that I hated the most. And the job that I took was very flexible. If it was you can't come in today, come in tomorrow. It was flexible in how we put the hours together. If you wanted to work noon to 8 o'clock at night, you can do that. Like you could pick your own hours. So it was flexible in that way, but it was always having that hanging over my head. I have somewhere else to be.
right.
And there's this 8 or 10 hours or 6 hours, whatever the day was, that I'm not in charge of me. I'm not in charge of my time. And that really bothered me. That was the
Yeah.
hardest thing.
I
Maybe
can
I'm
I can
just a
see that.
control freak.
Well, I don't know. I think we all like to be in control of our time, and I'm self-employed. I don't have a boss other than
Yeah.
me,
Yeah.
but I have a lot of bosses because I still have to answer to my clients. And
Right.
sometimes I'm like, I just don't want to go today because I want to do my own stuff. Like I have things here. I can
I have things
work on my
too.
house.
Yes.
I
Yes.
can I can mess with the animals.
Yep.
There's a billion things I can find to do
Yep.
here where I want to be,
Yep.
doing other things that I want to do. I don't want to go build your deck today. I'm sorry,
Yeah.
sir. I'll see you next year.
Yeah.
But that doesn't pay the bills all the time.
Right. I did
So,
find it was interesting how much, especially if there was a lull in what we were doing, I would immediately be thinking of what I could be doing at home, because there's
mm,
so much stuff I could be doing at home. And so that
yes,
was frustrating, because if I was away from home, I wanted to be productive and busy and so busy all the time. So I didn't have to think about
right.
anything else. And as soon as it got slow, I was like, oh, I could be at home doing this and this and this and this. And then I'd get frustrated. So
Yeah. There's nothing worse than, or I'm sure there are worse things, but as
I
far
know
as
what you mean.
jobs go, there's not a lot worse than when you're used to um divvying out or taking care of your own time, being your own
Yeah.
boss of time,
Yeah.
and you go work for somebody else. There's nothing worse than having that lull in time or waiting on them. Like,
Yeah.
I'm gonna sit here and hurry up and wait when I
Right.
could be doing that thing. I know I'm getting
Yes.
paid.
Yeah.
That's not the point.
I know.
Keep
I
the money.
Yes,
Oh,
exactly.
wow.
The other weird thing is, though, that having a boss, I was like, "Yes, you're my boss, but you're just my boss,"
Mm,
which was different than what it would have been 20 years ago, and I don't know if that's we're in a different financial position now, so it's not like, "Oh, I have to make my boss happy because,
yeah.
I can't do it," and not that I'm a bad employee, I'm a great employee, but, like, just you're just my boss. Like, you're just you're not in
You don't have
charge of me,
power
you're
over
not
my
in control of
life.
me, you're not in charge of my life. So that was, I think, an interesting, flavor to bring to the
Yeah,
that
for
was
sure.
different this time around than
When was the
before.
last time that you actually had an hourly job?
Ah, that would have been,
That might be betraying your age.
2002?
Okay,
My oldest
awesome.
was born in 2003, and, yeah, 2002, yeah.
That's super cool. You in today's world, you do not see a lot of stay-at-home moms. Even moms that, work from home, like there's that does not happen a lot. I love seeing that. That's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It was I always wanted to do that, so, yeah, I'm very lucky that that worked out and that,
Yeah.
my husband was on board with that, so, yeah.
Awesome. So you took a break from the podcast and writing and your blog. And when I say writing, I mean actually writing books, right?
Yeah,
Like you
yeah,
you took a break from all of that
yeah.
and so many different things. How did that affect the business you had built, or the how did it affect all the Farmish life?
I didn't
Uh,
realize that stepping away from it was going to affect it as much as it did because a lot of people will say, "Well, it's passive income." It's there and it will float while you're not there because it exists online, and yeah, but no.
no.
It if you're like, I was surprised at how many emails I got from people who were not happy that I
Hmm.
had, um, decided to take a break. But supportive, like, "That's great, you go do what you need to do. I hope that you figure out what you need to figure out, but man, we are bummed out that you're
But
not
hurry
doing
back.
this,
Like figure out that
but
you got to be
hurry
back
back,
here.
like, I hope you come back." So, um, yeah, it was surprising to me, and again, I think it's like you don't realize how much you're doing, or I didn't realize how much I was doing, and so then to step away from it, I didn't think it was gonna be that big of a deal, and it was. So I was like, "Oh, wait.
Mhm.
I gotta go
Yeah.
back to this, like, what am I doing?"
Oh man.
Yeah.
How long did it take to jump back in to bring things up to where they had been pre?
Um, I'm thinking, because I took a break from the podcast for, like, 3 months, I think. Was it 3 months, 4 months? See, time just runs together for me now, but,
Yeah.
um it didn't take that long, maybe a month or 2. It was like, "Oh, we're back into the swing of things," and then things, kind of pick up, and Amy's back, and she's writing, and we see her places, and, published a book, which was, odd to publish a book when I'd been gone. It was, "This book just came out of me, I'm gonna finish
Right?
this," it was like I was using my, frustration and my, "I don't know what's going on," to, "Let's just put that in a book." It was the oddest thing. I don't Yeah,
Mhm.
so, I don't
I
know.
had a
I don't know.
comment, Joker Cools, I'm not sure who that is, said about the only thing I miss about having a job is the social aspect of it. Even though we're only 5 miles off payment and 6 and change off a major highway, they get no visitors.
Mm.
And then he also said, and I miss the paycheck.
There is that.
Yeah. For the social aspect, Letty Lou, I've hooked up with a local mom group which helps with my socialization as well as the kids. It's tough as a stay at home mom, but finding others helps. Although I do sometimes miss the paychecks coming in regularly, but I've found some side work to do. So if you can find things that occupy your time that do bring in some money that
Yeah.
kind of taps into things that you love doing, I think that goes a long way in bringing you peace. Because even
Oh,
even
yeah.
having a job, if you're not tapped into doing things that you enjoy doing, like that just becomes a drag, and that's
Oh,
why
yeah.
people don't last long in a job
Yeah.
anymore.
Yeah.
How did that play a part in the job that you took at all? Like, was it at least work you enjoyed doing, or was it things that were
Oh, I didn't mind
monotonous?
doing it. It was office stuff. It was stuff that I was doing in my own
Right.
business. I didn't have to think about it. It was easy. So, I didn't mind that. But the other thing is that, right after I took the job, my husband, had a little mishap with his motorcycle and broke 4 of his ribs. And so right when I had taken this job, he then was off work recovering for that. So he was home and I was working. So we saw each other when I got home. Then when he went back to work on light duty, we were actually working the same hours and the same days. When he
Hmm.
went back to his regular hours, we were working opposite shifts. And
So
that's when
you saw
every
each other on the way through the door.
yeah, and that's like he went back to his normal because he's always worked nights and weird hours and whatever, and then I was still working this regular, like, day. And
Wow.
that's when it was like, what is going on? And it became apparent to me, it's like, wait a second, we created this whole life where he has this crazy job where he works these weird hours, and I'm home and I'm working from home and doing stuff at home, so we can work around that. When you're both working, that no.
Yeah. Yeah.
That was another one of the things I was like, what are we doing?
Sometimes you really have to sit down and figure it out. And on the note of what are we doing, you had a comment in the notes that you sent me. It says sometimes you have to back up in order to move forward. We
Yeah.
spend so much time doing what we're doing, or we get tunnel vision about it that we
Yeah.
forget why we're doing what we're
Yeah.
doing. At what point in there did the why come back to you? And what is that why for you?
I think it was around the time when my husband and I weren't seeing each other at all. That's what I
Yeah.
was like, wait a hot minute. Like, this this is and again, it was one of those things where it's like if there are people that live this life, they work opposite shifts of their spouse, and that's normal
Yeah.
for them and that's just what they do. But we don't have to. That's what that's how I got through the guilt of it, and that's how, I talked to a few people and they're like, "But you don't have to. Like, you built your life a certain way. You got your kids grown up and you got to this point where everybody's like, "Yay, the kids are grown up. Now we can go do these things and have this free life." And now you're like, "What did you do?" So yeah. And it's just I I remember standing in the shower and thinking, like, what are we doing? This is just coming back to that life we built. And it was so many things we did here were intentional, and remembering, wait a second. Like, you snap back to reality. You're like, wait
Yeah.
a second. Yeah, like, we don't have to do this. If we had to, we could, but we don't have to.
Right.
So,
Did you feel yourself change at all in taking on a job and feeling some of the stresses, some of the time and all of that? Like what changed
yeah.
about yourself and how do you feel differently now that you're mostly back into what you love doing?
I was not a nice person. I'm not kidding you. I was not a nice person. Um, because I was stressed out and because there was so many emotions, like, from the guilt of I should be able to do this, and the frustration that I couldn't, and then just, um, yeah, there were some there was some dark days there. I was not a happy person, and I was like, and I thought that I would work through that, and you just come out on the other end, and we just keep doing the job thing, and this is just what we do for the rest of our life. And then I'm
Mhm.
like, wait, but why? We built our life to be different. What are we doing? And I think there was like a part where you had to be okay with saying, "Yep, you're right. We did build," like, accepting that and being okay with that. We built our life different, and that's okay that we did that. And it is what it is. And some people aren't going to get it. They're going to be like, "Oh, Amy went out and got a job for how many months, and now she's, like, working there what, 1 day a week? Okay." Some people are going to be like, "Wow, it must be nice." Yeah, it is. I don't know what
It
to
is
tell you.
nice. You
It
can do
is
it too.
nice. You can do it too. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the thing I don't get about people with that attitude. Like, yeah, it is nice. You can do the same
Yeah.
thing. If I can do it,
Yeah.
if he can do it, if I can do
Right.
it, anybody can do it. I don't know about other people. Oh man.
Yeah.
What about labels that we get caught up in? I'm sure maybe you had some of that going into the job, editor or a gardener or whatever label. I'm a writer, author,
Yeah.
podcaster, and that changes when you
Yeah.
I don't know, like when you make a switch, that changes. How can you work around that? Like how did that affect you?
It was hard because I had built up this whole thing where I am Amy Dingman, the homesteader. I am
Mhm.
Amy Dingman, the author. I am Amy, all the things that I am. And then I went and got this job and I was busy, and then I wasn't doing any of those things. Okay, so who am I?
Right.
Yeah. So now I'm like, who am I? I didn't know. And so I think the way that I got around this, I was talking with a friend of mine, and we were talking about how sometimes we get caught up in all these labels that we put on ourselves and all these ways that we want to define all the little boxes that we fit into. And really, your label, if you're gonna live with a label or operate under a label, your label is your name. Like, I am Amy Dingman. I'm Amy,
Mhm.
and that's who I am, and that's all that I am. You know what I'm saying? And that can be so many things. And when you operate under that, it's like, okay, this is what I'm doing today, and it's part of who I am. And so I think that's what I had to just get okay with. It's not I can be Amy Dingman the homesteader, or I can be Amy Dingman the singer, I can be Amy Dingman the writer, I can be the whatever, but it's all Amy Dingman. And so instead of focusing on all those little boxes, focus high level up here. It's just you. You're just you. That's what it is.
So
Yeah.
do you put any thought into who Amy Dingman wants to be and the type of person or how you wanna show up in the world? Or, like, how does that play into the life that you live and the things you do on a day-to-day basis?
I think I've just decided that I want to be just genuine. Like in whatever I'm doing, I just want to be real, and I want to be honest, and talk about how crazy it was that I went and got a job, and then how many months later I'm like, meh, not for me. That's not the
Yeah.
life for me. But being willing to talk about it and just be like, yeah, okay. Because so many people do stuff that other people could learn from, or other people could be like, yeah, I did that too. Or wow, what'd you learn from that experience? And there's so many people that don't talk about it though, because they want to put on this this great front, or like I planned that out and it worked perfectly.
Yeah.
you know? Yeah.
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 So often we set out to make a plan, and sometimes the plan works, but usually it explodes in your face, and then
Yeah.
you have to pick up the pieces and be like, "All right,
Right.
now how can I put this thing back together?"
And make it look like I meant to do that.
Yeah, totally meant that. That was on
Totally meant.
purpose.
Yeah,
Oh,
exactly.
man. So what's up with for you moving forward as you get back to, you've been back to what, 4 day or 1 day a week working for the other
Yep.
business again.
Yep.
What kind of projects do you have moving forward? Are you re-implementing all the things you were doing before, or yeah, talk a little about that.
So like with Farmish, just going back to the podcast, I've got a bunch of books I'm working on. Like because I just can't stop writing. I don't know. Really getting big into YouTube and making videos because I love making videos. I love editing videos. That is my theater nerd coming out because I was a theater kid. I
Huh.
was going to be in musical theater. That was my life dream, my life goal. So doing video, gets me back to do a little bit of that, but it just so much. And then on the farm, we're going back to all the stuff that we didn't get to do last year because I was gone. And my husband was recovering for how many months,
Yeah.
from breaking his ribs, and there was so much stuff we didn't get to do last year, and so much stuff that we wanted to add last year, like add rabbits to the farm and build a smoke house, and like we have so much fence we need to repair from storms that happened, and just there's so
Mm.
much stuff that didn't get done last year. And so yeah, it feels like, we took a step backwards or like a whole bunch backwards, to be able to step back and look and go, okay, what are we doing here? And then make a plan
Right.
to see how that works out. But I feel way better about that. So
Hmm. Joker calls. I'm not sure exactly how to say that. He said he might have to start running moonshine to keep the bills paid, so I
yes,
told him to send some my way.
perfect.
Ah, I'm in
Perfect.
Kentucky, so I'm sure I have access to it around these hills
Yeah.
somewhere.
Yeah.
So what would you say to somebody who is right now facing that same, I don't know, call it a midlife crisis, call it a
yes.
change, like where, kind of what you went through with your kids graduating and
Yeah.
now they're off with their own jobs and now you got to find who you are. For
Yeah.
somebody else who is facing a moment like that,
Yeah.
where should they turn or what should they do? Do you have any books that they should read to help them find who they are, or podcasts about that, or what would be the thing to do there?
I
And,
think
and I
it
know that's a tough one that may be impossible to answer.
Oh man, I think, it was just I think what I figured out actually, I think what I wish someone would have told me is when I got to that point where I was like, "Oh, something needs to be different here because kids graduated. Okay, now who are you?" you're still the same person you are, and nothing needs to be different.
Yeah.
There's nothing here that says you have to go out and do something completely different just to mark this phase in your life, because you know what, your kids growing up and going off to do their own thing, that's different enough. That's what it is. And you just continue on. It doesn't have to be this big dramatic, I have to go do something, you know? And sometimes I think there's probably a lot of times in our life where we make it way more difficult than it needs to be. And it's all up here. There was nobody in my life that was telling me, you need to go out and get a job. You need to go do something different. There was not one single person in my life that was saying that. In fact, apparently there was a bunch of people in my life that when I said, I'm going to go get a job, they were like, what?
What are you doing?
They didn't tell me that.
Yeah.
They didn't tell me that till after, when I was like, I don't think this is working. They're like, we were like counting the days to see how long this was going to work, because we were like, what are you doing? But yeah, it doesn't, we don't have to make it different. We don't have to make it difficult. Like, things are difficult enough. You know, you don't have to you don't have to make it more difficult. So
yeah,
I don't know, but it was interesting because I often on my podcast I would talk about, you know, just all the things you can do on your homestead. You know, you can do all these wonderful things, and you know, if you make the time, you can do it. And what I learned when you go out and you work a job away from home and you come home after your day of work, the last damn thing you want to do is like anything in your mind. And I did not understand that. So in some ways, I feel like going out and doing this gave me perspective I didn't have before, because I remember coming home from work and it had been a crappy day at work, and we had to put T-posts in the ground when we got home by our apple trees, and the ground was so dry, and we're trying to get these T-posts into the ground and they're bending, and I am cursing a blue streak, and I'm so frustrated, and I'm looking at this T-post and I'm like, I understand now. I understand why when I'm on my podcast talking about, you could just, if you, people are like, what? You know, because like when I was in a totally different frame of mind when I would come home, like I didn't want to do anything. The last thing I want to go do is now go work in the garden and weed for, like, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So it was a good perspective that was given to me. So, you know,
hopefully it's a lesson that, or a shift that you can hang on to for a while.
Yeah. 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 I will remember this time in my life. This is memorable.
For sure. Over here in the comment, he says it's pronounced Jokercles.
Yes.
I think it's Greek. I don't know anything about Greek. And he said he's of English and Mennonite heritage. So that's interesting. I'm Mennonite background as well. So I don't know how you found me, but awesome. Glad you're here in the comments. Jokercles. Never heard that.
Jokercles, so, Joker. I guess I could have said that one of these times, couldn't I? Because I know him. So yeah. Jokercles.
Oh, okay. Awesome.
Yes.
Cool.
Yes.
Super. So where can somebody find you to follow the awesomeness that is Amy Dingman and everything that you have going on? Find your books. You do both fiction and nonfiction. Is that right?
I do. Yeah. If you go to
what don't you do?
Lots of stuff. I cannot reach anything very high on the shelf because I'm very short. So that's why I'm very glad that everybody in my house is much taller than me. But yeah, you can find most of my stuff at my website, farmishkindoflife.com. Just go in the menu. You're going to find anything you need to know there. That's where you can find the books that I've written. You can find links to my podcast. You can find links to the Farmish Papers, the monthly snail mail newsletter.
I highly recommend you go sign up for that.
It's super fun. I love doing it. It's super fun. It makes me happy.
Yeah. We got to have those things in life that make us happy.
Yes.
If you don't have at least that one little thing that you can look forward to in the week, then I don't know, do something different with your life. Is all I can say. Find a different path.
It's funny because people are like, "Oh, I'm so excited you sent me this newsletter," and I usually put little personal notes in them, and it's very fun. And they're like, "I just love this," and I'm like, "You don't understand how much I love this."
That's awesome. So it's super cool when it's a win-win for all sides. That's
cool. Definitely.
Well, I'll definitely have all those links in the show notes. He's talking about you swearing, pounding in the fence post. Come chase cows. Yes.
Oh, yeah.
I have a story about cows. We had cows on the farm once, and we did not have proper fencing in. We just had electric fence with a little tiny solar shocker, and it was like
Yeah.
way out in the back 20, way back that way. And the cows kept getting out, and I could not figure out why they kept getting out, going through the fence. And one day I went back there, and they were out again. Well, my wife hears my truck just RPMs. I was roaring through the field, and it was not a good day. When I got back to the house, I said, we're going to go get a trailer. We're loading the cows, and we are taking them to my uncle's house. We are not having cows. Not till we have fence again. I hate cows. When they get out of fences.
Yeah. Yeah. Adventure time. That's what it is.
Adventure time. Yep. And Lenny also said she loves the personal note from Amy each week. That's super cool.
It's fun.
Yeah. I will have all those links in the show notes when the podcast comes out. Any last words for the audience? Not for life, just for the audience, for the podcast.
Just for the
famous
audience?
Last words, Amy. Come on.
Famous last words. I don't know. Apparently, this podcast episode is yes, but no.
Yes, but no.
Yes, but no. There, you just gotta figure out what you want to do, and sometimes it requires taking a step backwards and looking at stuff and being okay with doing that, being brave enough to do that, to step backwards and say this might not work, even if you're really sure it's going to. Realize it might not, but that's okay.
Yep. Awesome. Well, thank you for that.
Yeah.